Okay, Mackenzie is brave. This is very short. This is 3 paragraphs.
Wow.
Interesting.
Maybe she's listened to us.
Most people go the other route on that. Although these are pretty long paragraphs, I think if I turned this into double space, they're going to look really, really long. Anyway, hi, Ben, Nathan, and Annalisa. That's our producer, A. Dot. I would like to submit my personal statement for critiquing on the show. I have listened to all of the podcast episodes with good personal statement examples and attended the workshop on Tuesday. So I think I'm at least not making the most obvious mistakes. That's the curse of death when people say things like that.
I'm doing well. Oh, really?
I hope you're right, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
What I struggle with most is the content. The things that I mentioned in my personal statement are pretty much the most impressive things I've done in the last year and a half. I just graduated from college in May, and I haven't had some badass job where I fixed some major problem like many of the statements you all read on the show. I do have a 4.0 GPA and have been scoring in the upper 160s, mid 170s on practice tests. I take the test next week. So at least I have that going for me. LOL. Thank you all for your help. Best, Mackenzie. Hey, Ben, what would you rather have? A 4.0 and a 170 or a good personal statement?
Oh. A 4.0 and a 170, hands down.
Yeah. If you had the world's worst personal statement, you still wouldn't get in. But if you have a 4.0 and a 170 and an okay personal statement, you're probably fine. I would much rather have that than the world's best personal statement, a 3.0 and a 150.
Yeah.
In that case, they're not even reading that shit at top schools. So,
Well, the thing is, you're definitely going to get in somewhere. Someone is willing to plug their nose and take you to.
dude, pretty much everyone is getting in somewhere.
Yeah.
Since half the law schools shouldn't even exist, right? I mean, since half of the people who go to law school don't practice law, there are plenty of schools out there that are willing to take all your money and do absolutely nothing for you. The point is not to get in. The point is to get into a good school and go for free.
Yeah.
With a 4.0 and a 170, there are tons of schools that are going to offer Mackenzie a full ride, even with a bad personal statement. So,
Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about this comment here. She says, the things I mentioned in my personal statement are pretty much the most, quote, impressive things
air
I've done in the
quote,
last
impressive.
yes,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
in the last year and a half. And I hear this a lot, right? Like we talk to people about their personal statements in these workshops or whatever, and they're like, hey, I don't really have anything to write about. I haven't done anything amazing. And I sympathize with them in the sense that you have a kind of a boring job and you haven't done that much at your job except do whatever your boring job is. But I was just thinking in this moment as I was reading this, and I'm like, instead of acting like, well, this sucks, this is my lot in life, I haven't done anything amazing like what Matt did in his personal statement or this other person did in their personal statement, maybe you need to be more proactive. Either one, seek out more opportunities at work, right? You're doing your job as they've asked you to do it, but maybe you need to be more aggressive and more like that person who's at the job and saying, hey, I see you guys are doing this other project. Can I get on that project? I know it's not in my job, but like be proactive. And two, if you can't do that at your job, maybe you should be looking for a different job, right? Like instead of passively just saying, oh, nothing's ever happened in my life and I don't have these opportunities, right? Maybe you should be looking for them. I think that that's why Matt was at the job he was at. And that's why he got the job that he got. He took
Yeah.
over the manager position because he was seeking those opportunities. He could have just sat there and been like, oh, they suck. Why can't they do that?
I'll second that advice generally, is that just everybody should quit their job. I mean, not the people that work for us, because they're awesome and we need them. But other people who don't work for us should for sure quit their jobs, because if you don't like your job, there's a million other things you could do, and just go try something else. I mean, I ended up being happier than anybody in my career, and that's because I sucked at and quit and hated and quit 9 other things before I luckily fell into LSAT teaching and found the right fit for me. It really is about fit. And so, yeah, if you don't feel like you're doing useful, cool things that you want to brag about, well, then just quit that stupid job and go find something else. There's a world of opportunity out there.
Well, and also if you're risk averse, there's no harm in doing your job every day and start looking. Just
Moonlight,
start
well, hey,
looking. Yeah.
and moonlight. I moonlighted as a GMAT teacher. I had a day job that I hated so much, and I started moonlighting as a GMAT teacher just like because I was bored and I thought I'd pick up some extra cash, and I accidentally fell in love. I never thought I thought I would hate being a teacher. I'm like
Yeah.
super afraid of public speaking generally. If you asked me to make a toast at a wedding or whatever, I'd be like shitting myself. And I didn't
Yeah.
think I was like a public speaker like that. I started teaching GMAT classes with like 3 students in the room, and I was able to get my feet under me and realized that I loved it. And,
Mm.
but that was because I was going outside. So, I mean, and maybe that's the tip, huh? Like you could look, or you could
Mm-hmm.
actually start doing part-time stuff.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, email help@thinkinglsat.com if you would like to work with us, because we need the help. All right, you ready to get into Mackenzie's personal
Yeah.
statement?
Let's do it.
Last year, I spent a semester studying abroad in Seville, Spain. We always have to pause, don't we, Ben? And just think about the first sentence.
Most important sentence.
To me, that falls a little flat.
The verb is spent.
Yeah,
Thankfully, Mackenzie says I, so it's an I sentence. We're going to learn something
yeah.
about you, Mackenzie. But
Very passive,
spending
though.
this,
It's
yeah,
like
spending a
I
summer.
breathed air and ate food and drank water, in Seville, Spain. Like it's just I was there kind of a thing.
Well, the funny thing here is without adding any content, we could cut spent a semester and just said I studied abroad. And
Right.
that alone would be, it's still like flat, but it's at least you
Yeah.
doing something that's mildly impressive as opposed to just
The
spending your time.
Well, the sentence also, she mentions year and semester, right? So this is one of those
Mm-hmm.
examples where editor me can
Mm-hmm.
go through and take out half the words in literally
Mm-hmm.
5 seconds. It's like instead
Yeah.
of last year I spent a semester studying abroad in Seville, Spain.
Last semester, or just leave it as
No,
last year. Yeah.
I studied abroad in Seville, Spain. We
If you
don't need to
want to
know
get,
that it was last
we
year,
don't need to
and
know
we
the
don't need
time.
to know
Yeah.
that it was a semester. We
Yeah.
assume that it was recent. We assume that it was probably not a I mean, I don't know. That's half the words, and it says the exact same thing, and we get to. But I mean, really, is I studied abroad in Seville is your best. That's your
That's what
best
you
foot
want.
forward.
Yeah.
I mean,
What?
what conclusions, Ben? What conclusions do you draw about someone? These are going to be unfair conclusions because you don't really know. But naturally, we start making inferences, right? We have hypotheses.
Yeah. If
What
you say you
hypothesis would
studied,
you say? Yeah,
yeah, I would say that you're wealthy and you had the opportunity to leave the country.
right. It's like, I'm rich, so I went to Spain. Now, I told you in advance that that was not going to be fair, but that's the type of thing that a complete stranger who doesn't know you, like that's what you've just told them, whether it's true or not. You could be on your own dime, you know, you could be like a super adventurer who is breaking out of the mold of the poverty you came from. 9 times out of 10, you're a rich kid who had this privilege. So, and that's just not, I don't know. I don't think that's anybody's best foot forward.
Well, this next sentence
Is it bad?
doubles
Is it,
down on that
and
rich
it's a,
kid.
and it's a bad sentence.
Yeah.
This being like, don't you just, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
This being the second time that I had studied in a Spanish speaking country, I wanted to branch out of the classroom and get more involved in the community. It's a nice sentiment, I think.
Well, the thing about all I wanted sentences is you can always just say what you ended up doing,
I
and then we
did.
know that you wanted to do it, and we see that you did it. So this whole thing can go if you did it.
I began attending a church, and through this, you could cut the and through this. I
Yep.
began attending a church and discovered that they were in need of volunteers at their food bank. Okay. I will say, it seems as if Mackenzie has been listening, right? We have I studied, I learned, I discovered, I began attending. It's at least like I sentences with here's what I was doing.
You know, it's funny too. When we edit these, we're trying to get people to get into I sentences. And then we're trying to get those sentences to focus on things that are meaningful, show them doing stuff that illustrates characteristics that law schools want. But one thing too is it's funny how a small word change, even if you keep the same fundamental sentence, can change the feeling of the sentence. So for example, if I were to keep this, if I were to say, hey, yeah, I want to talk about this church stuff, instead of saying I began attending a church, I would actually edit it to say I found a church, to put the person back into the driver's seat, right? Like I went out, I found a church, I started attending, as opposed to I began it. It just seems it's
Yeah.
passive again. We keep running into this,
Yeah.
like life is happening at me.
I would agree with that edit if we were going to keep that bit. I would also just prefer that she started later in the story. I mean, the first sentence, she could just be working at the food bank.
100%. I
At
found a
this,
food bank that needed help.
yeah, the food bank, when I volunteered at a food bank in Seville, Spain, here's what happened. It's like, let's get to that point. I don't need the part where you went to the airport and got on a 747 and flew to, like we don't need all of this build up to it. You tell me about the food bank. I'd love to hear what you did at the food bank. Okay.
Yep.
I inquired about more information. What did that make my nose?
I asked. Even then, like, why?
Yeah, inquired is too fancy there, and also you inquired about more information. About more information is super wordy and vague and
asked for what? What do you want to know?
Yeah, what's going on? Right. Okay. And started spending a couple nights a week at their downtown location. Again, let's get to the action part. I want to see you at night in downtown working at the food bank.
Yep.
I helped sort and distribute the donations we received from grocery stores and farmers. On a few occasions, they asked me to entertain the people who were waiting to receive their food baskets by hosting English classes. You know what? That's actually kind of neat. I like that. I taught English classes at a food bank,
Yeah.
Like, but you can't get there in 8 sentences. You have to get there in like 1 sentence.
Imagine if your personal statement started out like this. I'm not saying this is what it should be, but given what we've read so far, what if it said something like, when I volunteered at a food bank in Seville, Spain, I was asked to entertain the people who are waiting to receive their food baskets by hosting English classes.
Even better, spin it into there was a problem and you solved it. So instead of they asked me to do this, you don't even have to say that you were the one who came up with the idea. You can let the reader incorrectly infer that you were the one that came up with the idea. It wouldn't be a lie at all. You would just say, describe the problem of these people sitting there waiting to get their food baskets, and then describe how you chose topics such as whatever, right? Because she goes on and she says, I would choose a topic, which she should have said I chose topics, but I would choose a topic such as restaurants or public transport and create a lesson using all the terms that would be useful to know in an English speaking country. So she has the opportunity here to have a problem and a solution,
Yep.
right? There's a problem and she's the solution.
Well, and I might even, I mean, the solution that you suggested that she solved was entertaining them, but you could actually just move right to the problem that she actually is trying to solve right now, and that is using these terms in English speaking countries, like helping them learn English, which sounds like a bigger problem than entertaining them in line. Not saying that you don't talk about that, but we could focus on that.
Yeah, you taught English to poor people in Seville, Spain.
Yeah.
They were actually at a food bank waiting to get food. You were volunteering at night downtown, makes you sound like kind of a badass. And it also makes you sound really human and helpful and, I don't know, brave and interesting in a lot of ways, actually,
Yeah.
to be sitting there teaching these poor people English.
And you know,
It's cool. I don't know.
we've totally avoided the whole, oh, I'm a rich kid persona if you just jump into I did this in Spain, as opposed to I was studying abroad in
Right.
Spain and then did this.
Yeah.
Total
Semester
different focus.
abroad. I don't I don't think we need to say those words. You are in Spain for whatever reason. Don't.
Yep.
Yeah. Um Sometimes people would find me afterward to ask questions about English or myself. Through these conversations, I was surprised to find that nearly all of the attendees were actually Latin American or Middle Eastern immigrants rather than Spaniards. Due to the period of time that I was in Spain, many were refugees from Venezuela who were sending money to help their families back home. That's a garbage construction there. I mean, you make it sound as if these refugees from Venezuela are caused by you, right? Due
Yeah.
to the
How
period of
long you
time.
were there.
Right. I was in there so long that Venezuela sent refugees to Spain. Like, no, that's not what happened. So shorter sentences, more declarative, cut out that due to the period of time. That's just totally gone. Um, okay, so you're teaching Venezuelan refugees English in Spain. Cool. What do you mean that's not I mean, she thinks that that's like not impressive. I think that's totally impressive.
I think it's impressive. I don't, by the way, regarding these last two sentences, I'm not totally sure why the sentences are focusing on that you learned this. I think I would
Right.
just state it if it's important to your story.
Right. It always makes you look naive when you say I was surprised to find whatever. I mean, the reader can be surprised. You could just tell us the facts.
Yep.
We don't need the extra editorialization about you learning this fact. Like we can learn it. Just tell us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's the first paragraph. Lot of words there, not enough content. Too much build up, too much background. There's really kind of like one useful fact there. She could have gone deeper, right, into an example of one of these interactions, or one night that she was there, maybe one class that went particularly well, or I don't know, something funny or something interesting happened. Um,
Yeah, you could turn this into gold if you
yeah,
shortened it down to 3 to 5 sentences. One or two of them is quickly getting into you volunteering and teaching English and making these decisions. A couple more about a
well,
specific person you were helping.
exactly.
All of a sudden, we're like, wow, okay, you're doing shit. You're doing it overseas. You're helping people solve problems. We love you.
Right,
And right now, it's kind of
right.
like, oh, I'm like lost in the weeds.
Well, it would be showing, because right now it's kind of telling.
Mm-hmm.
It would be showing instead of telling. When she says sometimes people would find me afterward to ask questions, you're kind of just telling me that happened. That happened. When did it happen? Oh, it happened sometimes.
Mhm.
All right. Why don't you just tell me about one of these interactions, and then I can infer that it happened sometimes. Sometimes means once or more. So if you just tell me about Maria, who you met from Venezuela, who was sending
Mhm.
money back home because she was a refugee, then now you're teaching this real human person, Maria, you're teaching her English in Spain. She's a refugee from Venezuela. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
You got to get into the more specific. Everybody tries to go way too broad instead of just go like detail into one person. Anyway, again, upon returning from that semester abroad,
Yeah. We're reminded of this privilege.
right, I began a managerial internship with Bluegrass Hospitality Group, BHG, a prominent hospitality organization in Kentucky. And again, we get a pretty common mistake. I guess I got to go back and look at Mackenzie saying, at least I'm not making the most obvious mistakes. Well, Mackenzie, one of the things that we said repeatedly during that personal statement workshop, almost every person was telling us about interviewing, like applying for things, interviewing for things, getting job offers. Well, beginning an internship is exactly like what happened at the internship.
Yep.
You don't need to say you began the internship. We get it.
Also, the location of the internship, the name of the company. People say this all the time. We were working on a personal statement, right? Like a month ago about someone working at a law firm and they dropped the name of the law firm. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we get it. You were working at a law firm. I don't care which one. And I don't care which hospitality organization. And in some cases, I don't even care that it's a hospitality organization. What did you do? What was the problem that you solved?
It's on your resume, the name of it, if we care. We definitely don't care. Yeah, I agree. Okay. For the first 2 weeks of the internship, I worked in the kitchen of one of BHG's restaurants. I encountered a strikingly similar situation to my volunteer experience in Spain. The vast majority of the kitchen workers were Hispanic immigrants, many of whom spoke little English. Using my Spanish skills, I learned that most had also migrated to the US to flee adverse circumstances and send money back to their families. Mm, strikes me as a little bit obvious. I don't know. Um, People who work in kitchens, Ben, tend to be among our least fortunate. They tend to frequently be migrants, and they frequently tend to be sending money back home. Um,
Well, so far this is about what she's learned as opposed to what she's done.
right.
So,
What'd you do about it? Okay.
yeah.
While the phenomenon of migrating for these reasons isn't a foreign concept to me, but your reader goes, well, it kind of seems like it is because you're telling me about how you learned this twice. It is a thing that people learn. I mean, it's not a foreign concept to you anymore, but it seems like it kind of was. But anyway, it was the first time I had developed close relationships with people who had been through this experience. Throughout my time with BHG, I had many conversations with my friends in the kitchen and learned, there it is again, learned how problems with the US immigration system impact the lives of so many people I care about.
Okay, again, this is an example of telling while the phenomenon, blah, blah, blah. It was the first time I had developed close relationships with people who had been through this experience. Instead of telling us that you developed close relationships, tell us about a relationship that you developed. Again, not doesn't have to be Maria, but whoever it was that you talked to. Even then, I don't know if this is the right subject
It's
matter.
not
Like
the
you're
right
gonna
topic. I don't
It's about
give
someone else.
I don't give a shit about the origin story of your progressive leanings.
Yeah, that's what
Most
really what this
people
is.
most people applying to law school like have these I mean, I think that's fair to say. It seems like it to me. I mean, we do have some like conservative kids in our classes sometimes, but most of these, they're young, they are politically progressive, they think they're going to make a difference in the world, so they want to go to law school so that they can help immigrants. Okay, that's like probably 20% of all law school applicants think that they're going to solve the world's refugee problems. All right. Um, you, maybe you will, but the origin story of how you came to care about these issues, it does not differentiate you in not the slightest from all other applicants. Like, you met a poor person, you felt sorry for them, so you decided to go to law school. Great. I'm not interested in I just there's too many of those stories. That's why I'm not interested. Like, you know what the thing is? Because Mackenzie's mentioning Kentucky, it's just like now I'm seeing her as this like suburban, maybe rural, maybe suburban,
Hmm.
not super worldly, but has some privilege, went to college, did semesters abroad multiple times, traveled around. She is working. I mean, she's working, but it's a managerial internship. It's not like she's in the kitchen, she doesn't think she's a dishwasher. She's a college kid, managerial intern,
Yeah.
But she is having her eyes opened to the world by these experiences, which is a thing that happens when you're young and when you travel. I went through that myself. I'm sure you went through that as well, Ben. You learn things from travel. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's just not special. It's just like you and every other applicant. You all have that exact same story.
Yeah.
Or it's a different version of that story where it's actually your family, it's somebody that you met them in elementary school, whatever. It's still just someone else's problem and you haven't solved it. You're just inspired by it somehow. And so you want to go to law school. It's not a unique, special thing. It's not you actually doing anything. So I would much rather talk about projects you worked on, a thing you did. And we're at
I'd
the
be
end of this.
okay. Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Well, I was thinking in terms of projects or things that she did, I would be okay with a statement that focuses more on the choices she made to help these people learn English in Spain, and then maybe hopefully she did this too in Kentucky. That would be kind of cool. And then I had this other job and I did the same thing again, not focusing on the job, but focusing on what she did to help these people. And then you're like, wow, you really care about these folks and you're really trying to help them. This is what you're doing, as opposed to her saying, this is what I learned and I care about this. We just get that.
I think we got way too much on the superhero movies these days. I mean, I'm just over. I think I've talked to you about this before on the show. I'm basically over like the Avengers and everything. I just don't. It's too much. There's too many of them, right? Some of them are
Mm-hmm.
great. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is boring, frankly. But um, maybe like people are so tuned in to this origin story um, theme that they
Mm.
think that they're writing a personal statement that's like, oh, wow, this is the origin story of Mackenzie, the super lawyer, the super immigration lawyer. Look how she got inspired by these experiences, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the problem is that these origin stories all sound exactly the same, and no one gives a shit about the superhero origin story until we see some superhero shit. Right,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and so far all we've got is the background, like kind of boring. It's fairly mundane, like, oh, I met poor people, guess what, they're refugees, they send money back home. That's a problem, that's an issue, but you're not solving it yet. So all you're telling me, like, you're telling me about someone else's problem. So it's plight of the downtrodden, and it's also just this like wannabe origin story. I think you can cut almost all of these first two paragraphs. Because if you haven't done anything about it yet, then we don't care really. Last paragraph. When I began my senior year, I chose to create an episode for our town's Spanish-speaking radio station for my senior year. For my senior capstone project. How do you feel now, Ben?
I feel better. This is proactive.
Yeah, this is so much better. She should start here, right? Cut everything else. You might mention it as an aside or something, but we don't need 2/3 of your statement to be all about you meeting Spanish speaking refugees.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hear what you did after that. What'd you do about it? And so now this, and yeah, it's a senior project, but hey, Mackenzie is very young. It's okay for her to write about something she did in her senior year of college, especially if it's something that actually went out into the real world. And Mackenzie, you would easily be able to come up with 2 full pages. You could make your entire personal statement about this one project and make yourself look like a badass. In the episode, dude, she produced a radio show. That's an accomplishment.
It is.
In the episode, I provided resources to recent immigrants looking to obtain legal status in the United States, discussed workers' rights, and shared advice from an immigrant who now runs a successful business. I also interviewed 2 immigration attorneys and the outreach coordinator for the Kentucky Equal Justice Center. My episode was aired on the radio station and posted on their website, from which I could share it with my friends. Cut out after website, period.
Yeah,
we get it.
We don't we don't want to focus on this small group
good
of people
for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I copied and pasted them a link and I put it into an email and hit send. From that, they were able to click on the link, go to the website, and listen to the episode. No, we don't need any of that stuff. We get it. It went on the air. It was on their website. Cool. While I still have so much to learn, being more educated on this topic has allowed me to speak out for the U.S. immigrant population when false information is spread.
Wait. What happened? This is like,
no,
I'm a superhero, but we don't.
No. This is you arguing with Trumpers. I don't need to hear about you arguing with Trumpers. Like, that's... You're
Where
not...
is this even happening? Is this on Facebook?
You're not out... I don't want to hear about you out there trying to debunk false information unless you have specifics. Like, do you work for Snopes? Like, are you actually out there actively doing a anti-disinformation campaign? I don't... Talk about, like, be more plain spoken. Don't make such grandiose conclusions. Talk about the actual radio show. Just give me a page and a half on this project. I would love to read it.
Why did you choose these attorneys? What did you do to prepare questions for them?
How did you get them to
decide
talk
on those
to
questions?
You?
Yeah.
Was it hard? Did you cold call them? Did you cold email them? Did you have to follow up? Was it difficult to get the scheduling? How did you produce it? Did you do it on Skype? Did you do it in person? Or did you do it on Zoom? I don't know why Skype. Where's Skype come from?
What resources did you decide to share with recent immigrants? Why those resources? There's a lot of work you had to do. You can't just throw together an episode and have it work.
Weirdly making grandiose claims about things I don't believe, like speak out for the U.S. immigrant population when false information is spread. I mean, there's more false information than ever, right? So it's like you haven't solved that problem. So don't make that claim, and instead just go into much more detail about this awesome project you did. It's fantastic. Last sentence. A career in law will give me the opportunity to help and support this group of people in an even more tangible way. Just, you could basically cut that out.
Yeah.
Um, as always, there is like a kernel, a little golden nugget inside the statement. I think it's the anecdote. You can flesh out the whole production of this show.
And I would actually have no problem with a very short introduction that started with her teaching English in Spain. It could show why she chose this project, but also if she sticks to the facts, kind of put this human side to her, like, oh, okay, we could learn things from that. I would be okay with that. And it might
Yeah.
round out the statement.
Yeah. While volunteering at a food bank in downtown Seville, Spain at night. I mean, obviously don't make it so clunky, but those are some details that are useful, right?
Yeah.
I
Taught English.
I would teach I taught English to Venezuelan refugees who were in Seville for work, sending money back home, waiting to get their food at the food bank.
Yeah. Yep.
When I returned, for my senior year at whatever, I chose as my senior capstone project to create an episode for our town's Spanish-speaking radio station, and then you can just go all into how it all went down.
And it would make so much sense. And you'd be like, oh, wow, you're this person who did this, and now you're doing this. You're a problem solver. Not all this learning stuff, not these relationships I created. And yeah.
Don't care what you learned. Don't care what you think or thought. I care less about what you want to do or what you think you're going to do than what you have actually done. If you show me, so I think we've got two really good ideas here. 2 sentences background about the food bank English classes, right into here's what I did about it. I created this senior capstone project. I would like Mackenzie to write like 4 pages about this senior capstone project.
And then cut out.
And then cut it down to a page and a half.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee, as en route to doing this, I'm sure she had to like learn things about, not that I really want to know that much about learning, but she had to do things in radio production that she had never done before. I'm sure she did editing, she did interviewing, she did producing to set up the interviews in the first place. So there's lots of little mini victories that are built into this one larger victory of producing this show and getting it actually on the air.
There's also opportunities to drop facts about the world into those actions that then reveal what she knows about this issue without her coming out and saying, I learned X. Like you could say, I interviewed so-and-so about XYZ because of its impact on this community or something like that. And you're like, oh, well, you apparently know this shit now.
Right. I don't need learned how problems with the U.S. immigration system impact the lives of so many people I care about. Instead, you could just tell me about one person that you interviewed for this show. And it's like, oh, I get it. She's been around the block. And you don't need to tell me a career in law will give me the opportunity to help and support, by the way, I don't know if you got that, Ben, help and support this group of people in an even more tangible way. Like, I get it that you want to help and support these people, but you didn't need to tell me that. You could have just showed me that by showing me the help you've already been giving them.
Yeah.
Like you're volunteering at a fucking food bank teaching English to these poor people, and then you're creating a radio episode to help these poor people. You don't need to say you want to help these people. You're doing it already. So just tell me about the doing it.
Yeah, I'm also, I'm wondering, I mean, a lot of these are just getting into the details of how you craft these sentences once you get this content that Nathan is talking about, once you get those 4 pages. I'm wondering if I'd even want to pare down the sentences to a point where I'm saying things like, when I began, I don't even know if I'd say when it was, but after I got back, I created an episode for our town's Spanish speaking radio station. You don't need to tell them you did it for your senior capstone project. That might be on your
Right.
resume anyways, but let's just make it like I did
Yep.
this stuff. And it's like, okay, fuck. Now, right, when you say it's part of your senior capstone project, it's kind of emphasizing that you had to do this for school and like you probably had guidance from the school. I don't want you to lie and pretend that that's not true, but why talk about it?
Yeah. I produced a radio show. Immediately the reader is like, "Oh wow. I mean, there are a million applications to law. Lawyers love going on the radio.
Hmm?
Lawyers, like, it's one of the best marketing tools many lawyers have is a radio show. So they start seeing you as like, oh shit, wow, a hustler. She can go out and get things done. There's a million different applications to the law everywhere really. So all you have to do is just talk about you being successful in doing almost anything. Doing is the key, right?
Yeah.
Not learning, not thinking, not feeling, not wanting to do, rather just the doing part. So she's got plenty of stuff. Everybody has plenty of stuff to talk about. But you got to get out of the broad conclusory stuff and get into the more like, well, this is what actually happened. This is what I did. I do think your point is good, Ben, about leaving out the senior capstone project. Makes it sound like she was forced to do it. Oh, you had to pick from a list. Oh, the radio station already was set up with the school to have
Yeah.
you do this as a project, right? Which may or may not be true, but the reader infers that it might be true when you say that it was a senior capstone project. And if
Hmm.
you didn't say that, it's just like, oh shit, she produced a radio show. Wow, that's amazing. Can I hear
Yeah.
it? Is it on your resume? By the way, it should be on your resume. That's a publication that should be, I would think, on your resume.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to wrap it up there?
Let's do it.
Thanks, Mackenzie, by the way, for writing in. Brave.
Yeah, thank you. Brave, but I hope helpful. I hope people go home with this advice and implement it. I wonder what happens. We don't usually hear back from people that we get to know on a very sometimes intimate level. It's like we've just gone through a lot of your life. I hope that it's helpful.